Welcome to Albion TV presents the AO Daily Show, your source of real news in an unreal world, keeping you up to date on the latest news, events, and the great community of Albion Online. Today is Tuesday, the 28th of January, 2020, and I'm your host, Shozen, and I'm kind of alone today, as Bogul is hiding in a hotel, seeking shelter from the coronavirus. So good luck to him, but for us here, who are on the show today, we have a lot of good news for you because we have 3 bits of news and an amazing interview with Frank Sinatra. I don't think I've ever had an easier interview to do. That guy really made my life quite easy last night while we did the interview. But first, the news. All right, we have some changes to the Crystal League, guys. We have now more time slots. This is interesting. The old time slots were 2, 13, and 20 UTC, but they've added 3 additional slots at 2:30, 13:30, and 20:30. This should be interesting as it just gives more opportunity to do more Crystal League matches. I don't know how this is going to work out as far as separating the good from the new. But that's the intention here, is to further give more opportunity to separate people who want to try to get in from the people who are already quite good. So we will see how that works out in the near future. Okay. Hold on one second. Let me get the next piece. We also have some incredible rewards for Season 8. They are coming, and they look pretty cool, as we have the massive behemoth. It sounds like this is a artillery piece, as it will be very good for attacking a specific area. It's delayed, but it does quite a bit of damage, so it'll be interesting to see how that works out. I'm looking forward to this one. Don't have any real art for it yet, just some concept art. They are still working on it, but delayed long-range attacks should be good. Some artillery. Fun Stealer wants to know why it's a behemoth when it's a buffalo. It could be a yak. I think that might be a yak, not a buffalo. I don't know. It's got some pretty wide horns on that thing. We will see when it comes out and is fully... Wait, no. That's the B-mount. Behemoth. You're right, Fun Stealer. That's what it is. Behemoth. It's the B-mount. Finally, they've gotten their mounts. All your prayers were heard. We finally have a Behemoth mount. Thank God their prayers were answered. All right. Another piece of information. Guys, today, PSA, big news. Last day. Your final shot. 10 tomorrow. UTC, 10 UTC on the 29th. That's not even 10 o'clock for me. That's like 5 in the morning. That's your last chance to lock into this subscription rate before it gets bumped up to the new rate. If you lock in now, like I said, you're locked in. It'll always renew at that price. Yay, pretty good news. Sorry that we do have to raise our prices. We're putting them more in line with other competitive MMOs, but these things do happen. However, we're giving you guys the chance to lock in at this low rate. I feel like, quite the salesman on this one. But definitely do get it before it is too late. You're going to want to make sure you do that. Oh, great. You know, I'm not even showing the things. Great. There we go. Sorry about that. I have not been showing the news. I will link all these in chat while I roll the interview, but there was one thing I definitely wanted to show you because this is important. Another PSA. I wanted you guys to all know, it's not a permanent ban when you get banned in this game. It is, in fact, just 200 years. It's not permanent. It's only 200 years. However, gifting it to a family member is against TOS. So if you were to do that, they would get banned too, and you would get banned. Again, so your original account would get banned. They would get banned for account sharing. Don't do it. But botting, no matter what you call it, AFK farming, for example, also a temporary ban of 200 years. Let me grab that and just go ahead and show that for you guys. Here's the behemoth for people who are wondering. Sorry, I did not show that before. Let me give you a nice big screenshot of that thing. Look at that pretty little beast. That'll be fun for people to roll up on in ZVZs. I'm looking forward to it. All right. But now, guys, I want to get to the meat of our show. The reason why we're all here. I did a interview last night with Frank Sinatra. Yes, the famous Frank Sinatra, GM of Sun. Yes, the one and only Sun. The GM of Sun. I mean, there are other Frank Sinatras out there, but not this one. This is ours. And he's pretty impressive. 20 years in MMO gaming. Founder of Arthur's House of Crafting. I mean, it doesn't get much famous than this. So I'm going to go ahead and play this interview. Guys, thank you very much for tuning in for this fantastic interview. I'll let it roll. We are here with yet another episode of the Albion interview series. Today, it is my great pleasure to speak with Frank Sinatra. Yes, Frank Sinatra, the GM of Sun, one of the longest running guilds in all of Albion's history because they predate Albion by a long time. And that's pretty much, I think, the first thing we're going to get to, right, Frank? We're going to talk about who you are, where you came from, and then maybe Queen and a couple other topics.
Yeah. Thank you for the welcome. But I think that's the program we were talking a bit about, and I'll be happy to go through that and discuss whatever you feel like, basically.
Well, let's start right there in the beginning. There, let's talk about where Sun came from, because it's a very prestigious guild. I mean, it's got some weight to it when you say the name Sun. You guys did some fantastic things early after release. Sun at one point covered all of Anglia. It was impressive. And then you guys went on vacation because you were celebrating, what was it, how many years anniversary?
20 years anniversary in former year. Yeah.
That's awesome. So why don't you go into that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, Sun started many years ago, basically. Well, I guess it's 22, 23 years ago now. I was a young guy, and I was selling Magic the Gathering cards and comics and games in a game store in Copenhagen, and I got this idea that gaming internet cafes was a deal, and there was an opportunity to get a 2 megabit internet line, and where all the others were riding on ISDN lines, so we could have this competitive advantage. So I pitched the idea of making a computer gaming place in Copenhagen back then, and we built it, and we played Quake and what is it called, Age of Empires and Red Alert and those things. And then at some point we learned that the game called Ultima Online was there, and I guess the rest is history in many ways. But our guild started the day Catskill server came up on in Ultima Online, so everything started back then.
That's awesome. I gotta say, that's kind of pretty much the way my gaming career started as well, back in about 2003, but slightly different. I ran a series of LAN arcades here in the States. Slightly different games, because again, 2003 and compared to 1999, that sounds like.
Yeah, it's
I was playing the games at the time. I remember I was a pro gamer at the time. I was playing Quake and Counter-Strike pretty significantly. That's how I got into and the Magic as well. Went to Spain to play Magic, actually.
We also traveled the world. I even actually I designed the tournament software and rating system software that Wizards of the Coast used actually globally. My dad programmed it back then.
That's awesome.
We had the license. Yeah, we had the license for every Pokemon or Wizard of the Coast game or all the Harry Potter, all these things. They want to play the tournament from, I think it was from 97 to 2009, possibly. They were running the program we made back then.
That's fantastic. Then I've used it. My DCI number is somewhere out there under your program somewhere.
Yes.
Fantastic. That's a really good story. I did not know that about you. So how do you get from there to, you said you started playing Ultima Online, and then when you were there, you created the Guild Sun. How did it grow there? Is that where you picked up Lupac?
No, Lupac came. He came a lot later, but we have a lot of people who tend to stick around. So what happened back then was the MMOs, they started coming out, and the they were looking for people to do the GM roles, customer service things, and pretty much every young kid I had hired to work in the cafe, they ended up going out to these traveling around the world to these game master jobs, and so they are all pretty much still in the industry today, just as designers or producers or whatever. I went the other way, but stayed back in Copenhagen and went to became a corporate guy, believe it or not. But the guild was created there in '98, and that is simply the one that has been going on ever since. And we have been going from game to game together. We have been to each other's, weddings. We even had some funerals, unfortunately, and pretty big history together. Everyone, and we meet each other 1 to 2 times a year, those who can, and so we basically have a core community, and then for each of the games, some people come in, some people leave, and some some hang and find that this is the place for them. So that's pretty much how it is, and how it's been going all the time. Only changes that many of us are getting older, but then we hope to sometimes to get some new smart, quick, the twitchy type blood in, and then maybe the older ones can still have some kind of experience that we can use as well.
Well, preparation, that's where the older generation comes in handy. I'm telling you, Frank, it's if we can help them with those 27-page documents for release so they know what to do, those kids with the Twitch skills, that the ability to get that 365 APM still, those guys are helpful. And just remember, Frank, as we get older, we start creating our own twitchy little generation over there, their own little zippers and zappers. My son plays. It's going to be a time where I need to find him a nice family-friendly guild. These things happen, Frank, and when you have a 20-year-old guild, I imagine you have. Do you have any of the kids from the first generation playing, like number two generation in Sun?
Yeah, we have that's a long story. Basically, Sun has we have a community part, and then we have what we call a main game. If there's a main game, that we run that, but we always have the community on the side. So in the community, we have some kids who are once in a while playing together, and I have a son that's 10 years, and he's really good at playing games, and his Fortnite skills are way beyond my own. So yeah, that works.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's fun when they start catching up. I keep thinking I'm going to start doing a secondary stream with me and my 12-year-old son, where we play different video games and I whoop his butt until the day he can beat mine. First-person shooters, he's starting to get close, but I got him in fighting games. I got him in RTS, so get in on that while you can, Frank. Get in on it. Those years end quick.
Time is not working for you there.
No, it's not. It's going to end soon. I'm going to try to keep that RTS one as long as possible. I have so many years of experience. It's really the one genre that still knowing what to do is the most important.
But actually, speaking of preparation, then I think one of my best experiences and most funny stories from Albion Live was day one, because we had prepared that to an insane level. We had 2 guys, in particular one who simply went around mapping every spawnable treasure place on all the tier 3.
Where all the treasure chests were?
Yes.
Yeah, was it Bart?
I don't know how much time was spent, a lot of time, but that meant that we had 30 maps mapped out where the chests could be.
Yep.
And then on basically the first hour, everyone had trained and basically to take a naked character out to the zone they were specified and got the silver. And we got so much money the first 3 hours on the plans, because then, of course, we were boosting a couple of crafters and then a team to go Hellgates, because they would be the only ones which would then give a lot of money and so on. That made us buy 22 shops in Carleon within the first, I think it was 28 minutes or something crazy.
That's incredible.
And then there came a lot of posts on the forums, because Sun was, people saying that Sun was hacking. And then because no one could have so much money, we were leading we had more than, I think, the next 19 guilds totally together on their ranking list. And then one of our members, he wrote, and I love him for it, but because then he wrote in the forum that we had found out that we could just turn the BIOS clocks on our PC 10 minutes back.
Yeah.
So,
I remember this.
and that made us enabled to log into the game 10 minutes before everyone else. And then it just caused like an 8-page riot of people wanting the
That
launch
was
to go
amazing.
over
That was so
until,
amazing.
and I think it was Eltharion who had to go in and write,
No.
just, from here, from SBI, just for your information, Sun does not have the ability to turn back time.
It's not Superman. That's amazing. Yeah, I remember that moment actually when we look back at it. Some of my members who I was playing with were unable to get in. So many people. We had a lot of plans, but half of our guild was unable to log in on launch day, and some of the ones who did couldn't get their focus or their premium. They were left without premium. Some of them. It was a really messy situation for a lot of players. And the ones who did get in, the ones who went around and, like you said, they went in groups. Like, they had groups of 3. They would take an ox, they'd run it through the mob pack and run around in circles with the mob pack on them while 2 other guys shot the chests in tier 3 gear, grabbed the loot from the chest, and then moved on to the next one. And they knew the spawn locations of all the treasure chests for all the mobs before the game launched. And those players made an insane amount of money. And yeah, Sun was in on that pretty heavy as a guild, not just as a friend group, not 3 guys. But what do you have, like 60 guys out there doing it?
Yeah, initially we had 31 for each zone, and we only did tier 3 and 4 zones because you could open the chests without killing the mobs.
Yeah, Bart was doing slightly higher ones, I guess. Bart ZG. Shout out to Bart ZG. Made the second most money on launch. Yeah, it's kind of awesome. So where did you go from there? You had all these cities. We're doing a lot of history here, but I think it's good history. Honestly, I think this is not a lot of people know about Sun. They've heard of Sun, but what is Sun? So you had all these territory, like all these shops in Carleon. How did you get from there to here? What happened since? Because right now you ain't got much.
Well, I think then you haven't probably looked at the map. Because I think we are the guild. I think we are the guild with the most hideouts. So I'm not sure why
I
you
love
base
it when
that
the
on.
internet can tell me I'm wrong. Thank you for telling me I'm wrong, Frank. You've made my day. So you're saying now Sun has reemerged as once again, because you had all of Anglia at one time.
Yes, but I think in your last show you talked about that that sometimes when a guild has success, it breeds more success. And back in those days, well, initially we moved into Anglia. We tried to find a spot that would suit us as a solo guild and to find our way. We had a really good GVG team back then. I remember we were living next to, what is that Brazilian guy? The guy with who had a, oh, I forgot. But there was a guild to the south. I'm embarrassed for not remembering his name right now. Um, Anyways, so one of the guilds there, they were doing the CVC a lot, and we ended up making a small alliance, and then we made something called the Lads Alliance, because I think Lupac had a guild called Lads.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you brought in. Yeah, Lupac used to have his own guild. I totally forgot about. They had the best flag in the game.
Yeah, and then we made a Lads Alliance to so we still have the Lads part.
Mm-hmm.
And then it, moved from there. Then we had a good GVD team that eventually burned out after fighting, I think, Mohicans every day for 182.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, it was that was wild. And then eventually they burned out, but other teams came to us, and then the whole political scene started where a few teams could dominate. So no matter where you lived in the world, you were kind of, needing to have some kind of arrangement or hiring, whoever. But once in a while, we had some teams, and that created more teams, and then we got all of Anglia at one point, and I think that was season 2. And then we never really got a great GVG team after that ourselves, so we were trying to make that work. That also you can do that with politics and invested a lot, and I have had a lot of cities. No matter what, people would always have a problem taking out a city plot because you could hire mercs that could defend and typically would like to defend city plots because they would have the advantage, so they would get a lot of great gear. But still, we ended up paying some some big money once in a while, which was of course annoying, but there was no real alternative with the game being what it was. And yeah, we were there for 1.5 years, I guess, or a year, and then eventually, you know, I've it takes a lot to lead a guild. It takes a lot of time, and I would like to follow someone who I felt would respect, and who I think had something going for them, and someone that I could follow. And there's of course a couple of leaders that I have respect for, and Derek was and is one of them. And so I talked to him, and then basically in the end, we took and decided to move our guild to Mercia and join the Oops Alliance. And basically, that we did that. So I did, because I didn't want to lead. I didn't want to lead an alliance. I think somehow for me in the game it became less and less interesting to lead. It started feeling a lot more.
It's like a job.
Like work.
Yeah,
it
it's
was more
rough.
like it was a job, and you can do that as long as you want to achieve something. But I felt that the achievements were not, there or realistic, or in the end, it was just not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
So going and following Derek's lead made sense. We paid some good money for a couple of city plots in Mercia, because, of course, I know that if we have them, then people wouldn't be less likely to kick us out again, because then you could always go to someone else and say, hey. So that was, of course, for strategic reasons. And actually, the last 4 months, I quit, or took a break, I guess is the word, waiting for Queen some time ago. And Selfie, let me take Selfie, a guy in Sun, has taken over. Actually, the GM reigns in Sun and Albion. So while I'm still the overall, say, GM of Sun in general, then he is the leader in Albion right now, and I'm obviously still around, and of course still involved with our plans and all that. But he does the tough task of leading a guild, where I am probably not that much into it right now. So I think it's a really great setup, and then I can still do politics and work on some strategic things, and then he does the daily GM role, and that suits me fine right now, and he's doing fine.
That's cool. And does it allow you to come in on like these big Invasion Day events and still get to play in some of these really cool events and participate in a fully functioning guild, right? That's what it does.
Yeah, and basically, I just wanted to play the game. When you lead, you often get to a situation where you don't get to play.
Mm-hmm. No, it's true.
And I really like the game, and felt like I really want to spend more time playing it, and especially in a time where I find that leading is kind of pointless, in the sense of what is it that you want to achieve. So for me, it's perfect right now, and I get to do some strategic stuff, some behind the scenes stuff, and the politics and the intrigues, and then I can play the game, and that is pretty cool.
Well, you just said that right now it sounds like Sun starts to have a couple of goals. You said they have the most home plots. Well, I'm sorry, home plots is not the right term. Hideouts, and that they have been growing and doing well, and you're enjoying the content. Is there a goal right now? Is there something that's moving Sun along? Is there a plan for the near future? Because you were saying just a moment ago, you're really enjoying this game. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because of the changes in Queen. I'm kind of feeling like there might be a coincidence here that this is more of the gameplay style you wanted. I'm just guessing.
Both yes and no. I would say if we take the hideouts, I really don't know if we have the most. We have 6 hideouts. I think that's fine, for pretty good for a solo guild. And we are placed where we had planned to be, and we have our supply lines from Bridgewatch to Arthur's Rest, and on the side I have made this roleplay project of having a hideout next to Arthur's Rest with crafting and all that kind of stuff, which is super fun.
Oh, big props to that, by the way, because let's be clear, you can run from Arthur's Rest, the little city there, to your hideout with the bubble, right? So you can get in there and do all the crafting that you would from a city inside of it's almost a protected state. You get there protected. So that's really cool. I mean, that not a lot of hideouts have that kind of ability, and you said you made it public, right?
Yeah. I was so annoyed with myself because I got the idea too late, basically. But we managed to do it, and the idea is, of course, to have crafting stations available, because I feel that the three rest cities are really interesting. And if we talk about things that fascinates me with Queen that we have yet to see is, let's say, good gameplay over time. But that is the distance. People really underestimate what distance means now,
Mm-hmm.
because you have the center gameplay, the big guilds, and everyone talks about the big guilds and the alliances will come and crush everyone. Due to the distance, I simply don't believe they will.
Neither do I.
Once in a while, they might go out with a show of force, like with Xerxes and all his, his armies, and then he will
Mm-hmm.
cross the Spartans and whatever. But he will have to go back, and the
He
moment he
can't
leaves with
stay.
his army, someone will hit him in the back, and that's, you have the lifetimers that are pretty uniform. So if you are, let's say, I'm from Europe, so 18 and 21 UTC are the main time zones. Yeah, but if you go out to attack someone there, you actually declare it. The game systems is really good for this, because it forces you to go you pretty much declare where you're going, and that means that your home is in jeopardy.
Mm-hmm.
So how far away do you want to go when you cannot fast travel, right? I think you showed a fight at some point with Blue Army and and POE,
CIR, yeah,
where
it was a couple of
where
different POE
there was
members. Yeah.
there was this one fight where POE then had a small force hitting a hideout in their back, so I think Blue Army turned back. All that, where you can really use this as a strategic lever, and I think that makes so much, so many interesting things. You really have three levels of gameplay here, right? With
Mm-hmm.
with distances, you have from the center to the rest cities, then you have from the rest cities to the portals, and then you actually also have from the portals, or let's say the royal cities, into Caerleon. Because this whole thing with the black market only being in Caerleon, it really makes transportation and economy interesting.
Mm-hmm.
In
Well, the people who
particular
can
because
make the people who have the greatest ability to make the highest percentage of profit on what they do are people who live in the center of the map in the Outlands, build up their tower, the highest, transport it back to the Royals, then to Caerleon onto the black market. Those people could conceivably make huge amounts of money, but there's so much involved in that logistically. I wonder who's going to take advantage, other than Fun Stealer.
Yeah, so what I've been looking at, okay, the quick thing to see is obviously that there's, with no tier 7 or tier 8 spawning in Royal Lands, that has to be transported from the Outlands.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that is crafted of tier 7 and tier 8 in Caerleon has to be transported. That, of course, would imply that the prices eventually will go up on tier 8 and tier 7 resources and gear, right? Also, because before you would get a lot of gear, you would get all your loot, and then you would just take it and you would take a portal to Caerleon, and then all is good. Or to somewhere where you could use it. You don't do that. You don't have immediate access to a market today with a lot of people. So what are you going to do with it? That's also quite interesting.
I think that little cities like Arthur's Rest, like your little public city there, could thrive. The more notoriety they get, the more you can make it a public space. Like if you can prove to be capable of defending the area, not just for you, but for people who want to use that place, like you make it a non-hostile zone as much as you can, and let that be known. You could really create a true pirate city. It'd be very interesting, and also put you into a very interesting position politically in this game if you control that city.
Actually, I think that it's my ties with Sun and my situation and the people know me is in many ways a negative thing for the project itself.
Mm-hmm. No, I can see that. No, that you come with like people will have thoughts about you because you're connected to so many oops or upset, whatever you want to call the Derek Alliance at any given time, but you've been associated with that in the past. Your guild has created in-game enemies, but the idea of a pirate city should transcend that, Frank. I believe in a thing called piracy.
Yeah, basically, we are building it up on we made a true RP guild where all the members, everyone can of course be a member of the guild, as we have made written on the forums, and they stay totally in character, much to the incredible dismay of all the guests. And we have literally characters logged in who says welcome things or shouts at the workers in the hideout, and go around talking to people about the day. We're having a blast. And people they they start with hello sir and all that, and then they, yeah, but how much for this, and and when you keep answering yeah, I've never tried this RP thing before, but we have a lot of fun, and we are trying to utilize the way, this is a sandbox game, and
The-
you can build the life you want, and you can really do a lot of stuff. So the
that's
dream,
amazing.
yeah,
I got to
yeah.
tell you, I love that. I had a friend who, like you said, you started 20 plus years ago. I started 20 plus years ago playing an EverQuest, and one of my close friends in real life, he didn't get a lot of time to play the video game, but when he would log in, he would run an elevator like that you had to run a switch for, as if he was an elevator operator in the Elven city, and that's all he did for like an hour a day, twice, 3 times a week, and he would just have conversations with people as if he was the elevator operator. And
Yeah.
I wonder what these people would like think if they knew that the person who was running their elevator was like an Emmy winner. He's like, "Yep,
Yeah,
this is what I use my acting skills for, is running a freaking elevator."
I had a guy yesterday who insisted that I was an AI, and he tried to trigger responses, standard responses, and it was it's a lot of fun, and but of course it's also serious in the sense that of course the future will be that you will have access to crafting places close to these rest cities, and what is the way to have something like that going? Well, try to make something neutral that everyone can join. When there comes some kind of circ that takes over the territory owners, you will offer them, low rates on the station, so it's also in their interest. And I obviously talked to the guilds around. Well, it's also in their interest that their members can be self-sufficient, and that the market, it's everyone who lives there really wants the market to work, because all people, all our members has to be able to get the things they need in order to really move into the Outlands.
It's true.
So these things will happen, and I'm pretty sure you will see more. Some will be taken like in a fun context, but still serious, and others you will see the big forces maybe taking over the city. It's really possible, so it's interesting. And as for friends, friends in a game like this is always interesting. Our life in Oops, there's many guilds we respected, and obviously we also had a very strained relationship with the Take Care from day one. But we learned to, or try to be polite towards each other. But I guess that is one of the few guilds that doesn't really work well with us, because we're so incredibly toxic, which is not really our style. But we managed still, even though that they didn't like us and we didn't like them, we managed to work together. And Derek was the leader back then. But before that, I've been working with CIR as well, No Syndic well as well. So it's not like in this game everything is also opportunistic, right? As long as you can trust, I think it's all about trust. The moment you can trust people, that's when you know that if situations come up where it's worth talking to each other, then you do that. It's very rare that real hate happens unless there's some kind of basis for it, and I basically try to avoid that.
Yeah, we're all just playing a video game, and you have to, like, I love the trash talk. I think the trash talk can be fine, but try to keep it within the rules of the game. Try to keep it in game, and don't go to the extreme on people. You don't need to. You can, in most cases, get along, right?
Well, often people also choose to, become angry about something. For me, it's only really when all it boils down to is trust. Do you trust someone when they say something,
Mm.
or have they broken that trust? Once someone has backstabbed you or something, then you're pretty much gone. Also, actually, in politics, because you have to trust each other when you do any kind of agreements. And as long as you're reasonable and you can make reasonable deals, then you will make things work.
Now, it's important in a game where so much of this game is about the politics, the interaction between guilds and alliances, because we get these numbers going, and you've seen them. 4,000 versus 4,000, 7,000 at one time. We always have Arch, that one time was twice now, over 10K. So much politics goes into that, and keeping that kind of sized force together.
Yeah, but for example, if you take Arch, then Gluttony and me, you will in all of the Albion time, also back when I was on the round table, right? We would never agree. We would be against each other in pretty much every argument, and we would disagree on everything. but still, Gluttony and me has history. That's what happens with leaders who go through games. We also know that both of us we took. It's another very long story from Darkfall, but we took down a guy called King Manus and his 5,000 men or whatever in the most epic of wars. So we have history. So back then we could work together if there was a common goal of taking down this huge enemy. But for now in Albion, we have never worked together, and we are always disagreeing. But the thing is, I would still trust him, and I think he would trust me if we did something. We haven't never done it, but when the trust and the respect is there, you can then you can say never. And for most leaders, I have it with that. Of course, there's a lot of toxicity. I can definitely handle that. It's only people who betray you, or break deals. That's for me. That's the no go, and that's what people remember. Years later.
It's true. They do remember when you stab them in the back. They don't forget that. There's been a couple of good stories about that in the history of Albion. But I want to touch on something. You said that you and Gluttony had worked together in the past, and you're looking for people to use your city, right? Arch brings you a lot of customers real quick, and if all those guys can just play by the rules. I mean, Arch playing by the rules. I'm sorry I brought it up. I apologize. Let's move on. So you were saying, what are the things about Queen that you really enjoy?
Well, first of all, I would just say with the hideouts at the rest cities, the patch is still so far from being mature. People are both mentally not ready to move into the Outlands, and they're also scarred from the history where we've had player cities for 3 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was never really a good place to live because it was better to go to the portal and go back to Kellyan or whichever city you were. So I think it will take a long time for people to start venturing in and live out of the rest cities. I just want to basically show that it can be done and in a self-sustainable way. And then I think more and more people will come in, and eventually there will be guilds living out of the rest cities, and there especially ganking guilds, right?
Mm-hmm.
That would be the place. And for Queen, this is part of the interesting thing for me.
Well, you're a long-time player, so you remember things like Queen's Market and King's Market, cities out in the red zones that worked much differently than our current cities. You remember when we actually had home plots that were interspersed with territories, and people would live right next door to each other in the same territory and have multiple things in that territory to fight over, and they would often find ways to get along with their neighbor. And I think of that kind of like our hideout system. You could have 3 hideouts of different alliances in your zone, but you could all find a way to work together in that zone so that at least that zone isn't a hotbed of blood and murder amongst the people who live inside their home. You look at each other and go, I know that guild tag. Hi, no, these are my mobs. You go that way. Thank you. I'll see you at dinner. And then, out in ZVZs and the rest of the world, you fight. I think that might happen again in this new Queen world. It gives so many different options to players to really live in their territories. And that's something that I loved about early Albion, was the sense of living in your territory and the sense of community with the people who lived around you, either the animosity because you disagreed with them or the friendships you made. I had Articulum Mortis and Chicken Kiss as neighbors. They were amazing. I had Red Army and EOS as neighbors. It was awful. It was perfect. I miss those times, and I see Queen having the option to give us similar gameplay styles.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back on the beta names, right? Because I cannot remember the beta name, but back there was a beta where there was like a city called Black Forest, that was also pretty much out where with the PvP just at the gates and trying hard to get into, but an important city nonetheless. And I see the rest cities pretty much getting the same role. And as for people getting along, I think you're totally right, and I think that many guilds they don't realize it yet because if this was a new game with new players who would step into the game for the first time here last Monday, then they would immediately start collaborating and look at that. But they are so bound of the past that they try to compare to that. It's totally different gameplay, and you will see these hideouts come down. You will see a lot of guilds collaborating. You will probably see a lot of guilds who agree that yeah, we live here, we fight each other, we even fight each other in the same zone, but we help each other if someone else comes,
True, yeah,
right?
you might see, yeah, like agreements between different guilds and alliances to just protect against the enemies. You could be right. There could be a nice small skirmishes inside your own territory. That would be amazing. Just daily known PvP, fighting over different resource piles with your friends, frenemies, whatever.
I think if you talk to many of the smaller guilds, they would all like to fight, but they would like to fight someone their size.
Right.
And how do you do that? Of course, I think the system kind of leads into it. I think we should talk about the GVGs at some point, but
Hmm.
this system leads into it. And I'm sorry, and it simply means that they will have these fights, and they will be able to have fun. I've been a sports coach for many years as well, and a couple of times I was coaching twins, and twins always act like the situation where if you know twins, then two twins arguing with each other will be the biggest argument you will ever experience. But if anyone criticizes one of the twins,
Hmm.
immediately the other twin will attack you, right?
Yep.
So, and I think that is kind of the mentality you will see here. You will see guilds having agreements to fight each other, but then if someone comes in, they will gang together, and then they will go for them and defend their home.
I want to touch on one thing you said earlier there, because you were talking about how it's kind of hard for newer guilds to get involved in this black zone, and some of them seem to be apprehensive. I really feel that you're right, that guilds who used to experience this back in the day, or guild leaders who experienced this back during the betas, are going to be much more willing to take the risk and incentivize their guild following to go out into the black zone and do the things necessary to build a world out there and not be afraid of it, because they know what it's like to live out of their home. And there's some things in this game I talk about, like the tangible rewards and the intangible rewards. Tangible rewards are like silver and gear, and you send people out to achieve those. Intangible ones are like pride and salt. And if you can have pride in the place where your players live, not like the cities in the Royals where they fight in the black zones and then they return to their city. They don't have any tie to that. Nobody has a tie to their Martlock city or their Carleone city. They don't really care. It's about fighting their enemy. But if they live where they fight and they have to defend that, and every day it's walking by the same trees, it's walking by that same node, it's seeing the same neighbors, people have this attachment to that territory, this intangible reward to fight over. And those are the best in video games. If you can get people fighting over those, that's where the real like joy and sadness comes from.
Yeah, actually, that was how you asked how the whole Anglia story was, simply because we defined a home, and that strategy will be even better now. And that is what we're doing. We have defined a home, and you create this whole home feeling with the guild, saying this is this zone, these hideouts, this is where we live. So some Zerg might come one day and take us out, but we will keep fighting. We will fight for this territory every day. And if you build this mentality, you will get the territory. You will be able to keep it, because in the end, the big Zergs, they cannot take the time to fight in the same territory every day unless they really want it, because they have to fight on other fronts.
It's a
So
week. If
yeah,
you have 6 shield, that's a week. And they have to come every day. So they have to come the first day to take your territory. Then the next day they can knock down on your first shield. And then they have 5 more shields to go to take you out. That's a full 7 days. And they have to
but
travel.
the hideouts are not that important, because in the end, sure, the first thing, if you want to take the hideout, then at which point, there's always wars. After 3 or 4 shield losses, of course you will engage with another Zerg, right?
Mhm.
And you will have them come in, and you just have to win once, then you keep the
Then
hideout.
you keep the hideout.
But
It's going to be
yeah,
very hard
yeah,
to dig out one of these hideouts if you're coming from a long distance away, because that distance things. I was talking with Mojo about this actually. As guilds start traveling long distances, because he agrees with you. He's not going to bust his balls to come out there and harass guilds out in the outer ring, because he has to get his 300 guys to move there, right? And as he moves there, every 30-man group that gets it in their head that they want to slow this down has a huge advantage over that 150-man group that just pulled in and is mounted and is running through. They don't want to stop. They don't want to turn around to save 5 guys. They don't want to turn around to stop some people who are, snagging people at the gate and finding chokes. They don't want to do that. And if they lose 4 or they lose 5, or heaven forbid they get involved in a full-on skirmish halfway there, they could have half of their forces split up and then get wiped out. Boom, you have your shield back. You have all your shields back. And you really have to tick them off to get them to come back again.
But you're not even taking the territories themselves into account, right? You have to have the territory to attack the hideout. So what do? Someone is now 4, 5, 6, 7 zones away from their home, and they are now trying to take out your hideout, right? What you immediately do, you just attack the territory every fucking day. Sorry.
Yeah.
You attack it every day. So they have to come out. Even when if they take down your hideout, you just do the same.
You keep going back to their territory and keep taking it again until it's yours once again. No, I hear you. Make it a month long. They have to defend it for a month. They have to want to keep it in order to get you out, is what you're saying. I like that. No, that's pride in your home. That's another step forward. That's good stuff, Frank.
And you can do that everywhere. The thing is, the best and the strongest guilds, they will get the top zones. Mm-hmm. Absolutely fine.
Absolutely. That's what they're here. That's what they're there for. They're there to get 2 groups of 300 to fight each other, 2 groups of 600 to fight over each other, and get those 1,200 players out of your hair so that you can have your guild fight another guild, or your 400-man alliance fight another 400-man alliance. Find something that's your size. Eat your size of a cake or whatever it is. Don't go going for the center because you're going to get run over. CIR's battle mammoths are rude.
You have to get a force that is strong enough that it has to be taken seriously. You don't have to have the best army. You don't even have to win any fights that goes on, as long as your opponent has to prioritize you. Mm-hmm. Because in the end, that is what they will not be able to do.
That's true. Good tactics right there for people who are looking. Well, that's actually strategy. Good strategy right there, Frank. So you want to talk a little bit about crystals. You said you want to talk about the 5v5 situation in this new world. Do you want to talk specifically about how that impacts territories? Because personally, to me, that's huge. How these territories and towers can be ranked up.
Actually, if it's that part of the topic, then I am not super happy with the bonuses for winning the crystals.
Okay. No, that's good. Talk about that. I want to hear what you have to say.
So my reason, and I might have misunderstood it. As far as I understand it, you level up the enchantment rate zone in the territory, in the zone that belongs to the territory where you fight the crystal.
Yeah, you would pick the tower, and you'd fight that tower in a crystal of the appropriate rank, and it would level it up to that rank. And each rank increases the spawn rate and spawn rate of enchanted as well, like the percentage of enchanted. Up to 50% at a tier 8, I believe.
Yeah. So the problem here is that I would like that a small guild with a good GVG team actually would be important, and that it would be great to have a good GVG team, even if you are small. The problem is, sorry, I have a cough. I'm trying to get out of it by shutting off the push to talk. So the problem is that the small guilds, they will have the tier 5 or tier 6 territories. That's not the important ones for where you want to gather, right? You want to gather in tier 7 and tier 8 zones mainly, but you will never own them. So actually, for most of the guilds, the GVG team is it doesn't matter.
Well,
I don't think, and also you have all the transportation of the gear, getting the gear out for the teams. Mm-hmm. I think we will see a lot of teams fighting the crystals, but I think they will fight them out of the royal cities, because you don't care about having a higher enchantment rate in the tier 6 territory. It's just not worth it compared to the effort of having all the team in the same guild and moving them out there.
I can understand that. There are a bunch of tier 8s though in the middle and in the outer areas, and I believe the increase is for everybody, so it's not just for you as well. And so the other thing that this brings, and I actually like this part of it, is that if you have a T8 zone, right, and you get it all the way up, it's going to be one of those juicy zones that other people are going to want to come to for a number of reasons. Not just to gather there themselves, but to pluck off gatherers. And if there are people plucking off gatherers, that's going to mean that people are going to come there to defend gatherers. And if people are there defending gatherers, now you suddenly have people who are coming to kill people who are defending gatherers. And these groups of people who are fighting suddenly start going up to, that 20v20, that perfect size that ends up happening. And so I'm looking forward to that kind of gameplay and to see how that kind of scales. But I do understand what you're saying is that if it's tiering up a tier 6, there's a lot of people who won't want to try to put all the effort in to make a level 6 T6 tower. You're right.
Yes, and then my point is that for guilds who are not the top guilds, the top alliances who live in the tier 8 and 7 zones, the majority of the guilds will not be living there, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't really have interest.
There's a lot of them on the outside.
I don't care about a higher enchant rate. I don't care about a higher enchant rate in any of my zones, because ideally, if I was meeting, let's say, a Syndic in a crystal fight, I would prefer losing to him, because that would mean that the high tier zones would get higher enchant. It would be in my interest to lose to a team who comes from a tier 8 zone.
That's an interesting point. I hadn't thought of that. It's a different one. But I do believe you don't have to. I don't think it goes down if you lose. Like, it doesn't lose rank. You just have to win one during the phase in which it has to stay alive.
Yeah.
So if you lose the first one.
My only point is that for most of the guilds that live in tier 5 or tier 6 zones, the wins doesn't matter, because that is not your primary gathering zone anyway. So what do you need it for? It's like giving candy to people thinking they get candy, but they don't, because they don't need it. I would much rather have a smaller buff, but guild-wide, so the guild that, the idea is really good, that the guild that has players who do well in the crystals, they get some kind of buff. That's great, but it should just not be to the territory, because then you tie the circ to the 5 players, and that is what you don't want.
I have to say I understand your point there. I do really love the idea of a buff, and I do think that there will be a lot more guilds competing for that buff than maybe you believe, but I do understand the point that you're making. I think that you make a legitimate argument there. I can't disparage it, and I won't. There might be a better way to do it, but I do like I'll be honest. My thoughts for how to increase a territory's resource rate and spawn rate was to completely tie it to activity inside that zone. So that the more people who are active in that zone, just naturally through PvE, PvP, and gathering. Actually, I really thought PvE and gathering mostly, because there were reasons not to do PvP. It would be those activities that drive both the fame increase in the zone and the gathering increase in the zone for players. And it would mean that the hotspots in the game, the places where the most activity occurred, would also be the places that draw in more activity. And I like that idea. So I do understand what you're saying about once again, one of the big problems was tying territories to 5v5 for a lot of reasons. And in a way, we've kind of done it again.
Yeah, and imagine what happens just before Crystal goes live, right? If people actually use the zones, then it's just a field day for portal gangers, right? You have so many people coming out with their sets at some point, because they need to restock their sets and they are going to the territories. And that's just, you don't have to die many times before it's not worth it for anyone.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's the best solution right now for most guilds, unless you have a tier 8 or tier 7 zone, is simply only to do your crystal fights from the cities. That is how I see it.
Okay. No, I understand that. And I just hope we get more people doing the crystals, to be honest. I saw some really good activity here in the off season. It really encouraged me, and I'm excited for it. There are things that I agree. There's a lot of little things in this patch that can be tweaked. It's not all perfect yet, but I'm really, really encouraged by what I've seen so far. Before we started talking today,
say here then, just not sound totally negative. I think it's a great system. I think it will be interesting. I think you will see a ton more players doing it. That whole part, no discussion. We'll see a lot more people doing competitive 5 versus 5, and I think that's a great thing. My only gripe here is the incentive to fight out of your territory if you're one of the 95% of the guilds that doesn't own a tier 8 zone.
I can understand that.
Otherwise, it's awesome.
I can understand that. I gotta say, I hope that a lot of guilds who do own 7 and 8s do try to raise their towers. I really hope they do. And I hope some 6s do as well, because 6-2 ain't half bad for a ZVZ. especially if you're, trying to get a lot of people out there. And there's the transmute as well. Before we started talking and actually recording this interview, you were listening to my earlier show, and you said you had some thoughts on it. And I've actually never had somebody say, hey, that show you just did? I'd really like to give you my opinion on that. And I figured that the best way to do it would be to go in cold and have no idea what you wanted to say about it, because it'd get some interesting reactions from me. So, Frank, why don't you...
Yeah. Before I get into that, you mentioned 6.2. I'll just say, I do big time investments in this game. And one of the things I'm very certain about is actually 6.2 resources. And I have been buying a ton of those. 6.2, with now that each enchantment level is 100 IP, even with the mastery bonuses, 6.2 is super strong. So I think, and what I've been looking at prices, where you look at what are the transmute prices and what are the cost difference from the auction house to the price to do the transmuting.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest difference in the game is 8.1 resources and 6.2. And 6.2, there's a lot of it, and it's super strong. I think 6.2 will be a thing that will be standard, where 6.1 or 6.0 overcharge before was. I think for now the price is really cheap compared to the effectiveness you get.
Do you think it's good enough that somebody might try to raise their tower level, Frank?
Yeah,
okay.
Maybe. Maybe I see what you did there, but possibly.
Okay.
Possibly.
All right.
Again. So back to the talk here about the show before. It's because it occurred to me, we see this happen a couple of times, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a guild, you have an alliance, you have some drama, you have someone, typically maybe a good guy. The guy before, Dell was his name, I think.
Yeah.
Sounded like a good guy, like the guy who really worked for something. But it can also be other types, or types who, let's say, then there was the player, yes. But we have seen it in a lot of guilds. And then someone goes out, and then they feel they need to spill the beans. They need to tell everybody the low dirty, and how they were, doing all the great stuff, and then they were misunderstood, or in some way they always rationalize why are they now stealing from a guild, or do they feel they deserve 500 million, or you have all these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it always so what now? What do you want to do now? Because it's all about is are you quitting the game?
Oh, with that particular player, you mean?
No, but no, it's not him specifically, but it's the person who feels that they have to go out and show all the dirty laundry, right?
Oh, there's a lot of those.
Yes, and there's a lot of those, and I never understand them, because what is it they want to do 2 months, 6 months from now in the game? That guy Dell, for example, he sounds like the leader, the officer type you will want in any guild, and God knows every guild really can always use good leadership material. But you don't want people who the day they become unhappy, they go out and then they show all kind of personal DMs. They tell one thing or the other, or it's like the whistleblowers, right? Everybody likes a whistleblower, but nobody really wants to hire them afterwards, right?
No, I can understand. Well, I think with this particular individual, he's more concerned about how things changed. I mean, he didn't walk away with anything. He didn't take anything. But he did, when he left, say that everything changed from what had been to what is now. And he lost something. He's the one who lost something. When he was running his guild for his GM who couldn't participate, and he did everything that he could prior to Queen to follow his GM's orders. His GM sent a bunch of DMs to other players saying that the stuff he had been telling the person who was doing all the work wasn't what they were doing, and that if anybody complained about that, they would be let go. And the person who did all the work said, hey, I saw these DMs. What the hell is going on? And the first response that he got from somebody he considered a good friend, not just his GM, was to have all of his perms removed from all of the Ironborn activities, including the Discord, which he built. And it's not... sometimes in guilds there are people who do more work than they get credit for. And the loud guy gets a lot of credit as the leader. And you, as somebody who's led guilds now for 20 years, you know that the charismatic guy can't do it all without the analytical, organized individual. And in this case, the organized individual was just removed, and he believed that there was nefarious activities involved to change the opinion of his GM, and he was willing to make accusations about that. I feel bad for all the parties involved, honestly, even the person who was accused, because I do find it kind of silly. I would love to get them all in a room so they can, chat it out and get back together to fighting. I think it's awful that Dell left his guild, or because he felt so slighted when all of his perms were removed. He was not just a little bit of a right hand. He was the guy who built the Discord, organized the activities, gave out the gear, took care of all the writing down of planning, because Torthor didn't do that. And then when Torthor wasn't there to even be there for the pack-up time of Queen, this is the man who got the guild together to get their stuff out of Anglia and make sure that they could have their stuff returned to them come Queen launch. And on the day of Queen, that's when his perms were removed.
Yeah, I think there's several key points to this. First of all, every guild has unsung heroes. And as a GM, you can never really give credit to everyone who does a lot. In the end, for a guild who's been around for a long time, as long as they feel that they are part of it, that they are the guild, and that and that they have a say, and the leadership or whatever listens to them, then they are happy to do all this. So I'm not even sure that the real problem here was the removal of his rights. I think it was the whole story about him being ordered or told or whatever to build up this alliance thing, drawing the charter, really doing work to create this alliance, and then from one day to the other, it sounds like, no, we're not going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Without really,
yeah.
What you have to do as a leader is always to respect people's work. This guy has worked his ass off, and he weren't respected for that, and somehow something got wrong. So, what he should have done, in my opinion, is that he's a great asset. He's a great leader. He should go to another big guild and say, I have done all this. I can do this. I would like to be part of yours. I've been treated like this, and I've seen you. I respect you. I would like to join you guys and help out with what I can and build up a relationship there. Then, the good leaders, they would take him in and, of course, see what he can bring to the table. But then he would get a trusted position pretty soon because he's that kind of guy. But
people who do the work.
Yeah. But he also got slighted to the degree that he goes out and spills all the beans, shows all the DMs and all the dirty laundry, and then people will say, so if this guy feels slighted by me, he would do the same. Maybe that's not so interesting, right?
Right. No, I understand exactly where you're coming with this one. But then, I mean, he also showed his loyalty, as he is a man who followed Torthor for years. I mean, that's not easy.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough, but you do see these relationships going bad. You do. Another thing I found really interesting was all the talk about spies.
Yeah.
And the whole spy thing, I really think that the moment you go a lot into the spy thing, you start becoming paranoid, and I think I've been trying everything for the last 20 years, both having super strict systems and having not so strict systems. And the thing is, the first thing when someone contacts you with information, get the information, but don't let them in. Basically, they want to play the game. They want to play the spy game. They want to play you. And there's the number of times I've been contacted with people who has this and this information on that and that person, and I think maybe at least 100 times I've gotten secret informations of guilds or alliances coming to wipe me off the board. And typically they actually just do it because they want more people to engage in a war.
Yeah, they want to have more. They want to build up the war, and there's a lot of that. That's fine. I honestly don't mind the spying that goes on in this game. I think most of it, the grand majority of it, is fine. Though there are times when people do tend to take things a little bit too far, and that's when things get a little weird in this game. And I'm not gonna talk about any of those situations here. It's just that because it's just inappropriate. You know what I mean? We're playing a video game. There are certain, I'm gonna say it again, lines that shouldn't be crossed. Like, come on, guy. Yeah. Like, keep it in game. And how you talk to people should reflect that you're playing a video game. It should always make clear that you're talking about a video game. And when you don't, it can get a little weird. And when you spend, as some people do, 14 hours a day in this world, you can get a little bit too attached to it, and your lines can get blurred.
Yeah, but I think that's only normal, and I think that will, I know these types as well. I think the game has an interesting situation because you have some big personalities that just needs to be respected, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here you have, when Syndic plays, he doesn't, everyone plays for different things, and some plays to win, and some do that in their different ways, and all have their different types of doing it. But there are these persons where I think as long as they're around, they need to be taken seriously. And now you have Syndic, who's obviously big, and he needs to be respected. He really knows what he's doing. You have the same with Mojo because he has this star quality, right? You just really want to like him, and you want to. He's the type of guy you talk with him and you think he's cool and you want to follow him. He's just that kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Derek, who's for me like the real competitor as well. No, he's the driven guy.
Yeah, he's the grinder.
He is right now he's not in a position of power. I think I haven't been following it that much.
No, he's not, unfortunately.
But he's just and then all the big will gun for him, but he will work it out somehow. He is that type, right? But he does it because he has the drive to win. That is just huge, and then he has and he does what it takes.
Yeah.
And those three for me are the most interesting characters in the game, and following them and seeing what happens. And I think as long as those three are playing, it's really, really good for the game.
Absolutely. I call Mojo and Derek our two kings. Like they're like the hereditary leaders of Albion. They once worked together, and then their family, if you will, split. And since then, they've always been at war. And nothing could really kick Derek out of his embedded castle in Mercia. He may have lost a few keeps, but he always kept that main castle. And then he eventually took Mercia back. And I think of Syndic as the emperor who came in and destroyed the kingdoms. He came in with an economic model and just came in like Rome, and just the kingdoms fell for a short period of time. But then he disappeared and the families rose up again. And I think of Gluttony as like as a crazy pope who just has his following. I don't even, what do you call it? Like, what is the like a god king? Is that what they are when they are religious figurehead and king at the same time, or god emperor, whatever they are? That's what he is. But like Xerxes, his forces aren't great.
I like I have history with blood, but when I look at these, if I was to add him to the fore, right? Then as a characteristic, then for example, if you had seen that movie with Brad Pitt called World War C?
Yes, yeah.
There's this scene where they're in Israel, I think, and people are chanting, and then all the zombies wake up and they just storm the gates, climb on each other, just crawl up in each other. There's millions of zombies just crawling over the gates. That's kind of how I see Arch in this.
Yeah.
And then if you look at the others, then I think hope someone doesn't kill me for the evaluations, right? But I think that then Syndic would be more like a Caesar type, right?
Mm-hmm.
Really doing.
Yeah.
He's both, really smart and strategic. He also good at politics, and in general, he will probably, and I think probably always succeed in the games he plays. Probably also in his life with this strategic play, because he can both be likable, but he can also be cruel. And he can mix it, and he knows how to use his power. So the rent project he did back then, and all these kind of things, and also the passive and the hidden threats. He has all of that. Then you have Derek, who is probably more like a Napoleon type, who lives for the strife, for the conflict, to go out and do all these kind of things and be great at what he does. I think he's been consistently great since as long as I remember.
Mm-hmm. No, he's been very good as long as I can remember him in this game,
yeah.
from Red Army on. Yeah.
And then I guess that Mojo would then in this because of his gameplay would probably be was a Genghis Khan kind of thing, with his wild hordes of people just rolling over and owning everyone where he goes. But in the end, he can only be a few places, right, in a game like this. And the old game allowed him to be everywhere. Here it will be more difficult. He will still be, the circle leader. I think. Maybe PoE beats him a little bit again, but I also think that Blue Army has been relaxing a little bit because they've just been the best for too long. Now they're getting challenged, and I think that will motivate maybe even a lot of those who might not play so much anymore from them. I think they will be the best. I think they will be the best again, but they will. But fighting on different fronts and in many territories will open that up.
Well, I don't know if they'll be the best. I don't want to say that because I've actually been really impressed by CIR's recent gameplay. The first day, maybe 2 days, things went in Blue Army's favor heavily. And then after that, it went CIR heavily for another few days. And then we saw Blue Army pull it back a little bit as they changed up their tactics. But the fact that these two mega powerhouses keep going back and forth over and over again, and I don't know what happened today or last night, it could have gone back in favor of CIR, which I imagine it will, because both these teams are changing their tactics to fight each other. And it's amazing. This is elite gameplay for us to watch on the ZVZ level because they're using strategies like you were talking about before, and that the fact that you have to look at more than one zone now when you fight inside of a single zone because of the smart cluster queue. You have to bring people to multiple zones and figure out where they're going to come from and where you can go get them, maybe cut them off while they're in the queue. There's some really interesting tactics that you can use now because this map just opens us up to different strategies.
Yeah, I do believe that Squad will get the best territories and PoE will get the most. I think Syndic is superior when it comes to the big map strategic play. And then I think that the Squad elite forces will cover most of the center tier 8 zones after a couple of weeks. That would be my...
No, I could see that. And I also have to say that your interpretation of who these players are was spot on and amazing, and I really liked it. I really hope that the players find it appealing and it resonates with them as well. But Frank, thank you very much for this interview. We've gone over an hour now. I think every minute has been good. I really appreciate it, and I don't even think I have to do much editing. You just put on a fantastic performance and conversation with us. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was nice, and I look forward to hearing myself. I think most people cringe when they're not used to doing things like...
Well, yeah, I'll tell you, I still don't like doing it myself, but you get a little bit more used to it over time. You did great, though, and I really appreciate it, and I would love to do this again in the future. Maybe we could talk more about your history of some specific events or something in your past, because you've got to have a ton of stories. This sounds like you guys have been doing it forever, and I would love to hear from maybe some of your other members or whatever.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories. As a teaser, I can tell you that I have been doing everything wrong in my youth as a leader as well. And one evening, I even had Richard Garriott on the phone 3 times. He's the guy who made Ultimate Online.
Yeah, I know.
Because we were exploiting a lot, and he needed to know it because the game was being destroyed and all this. So I've made all the stuff you shouldn't do. But I think right now the real interesting thing is to follow what happens when the territories go live. That is when the game starts, right? Everything we have seen so far is just teasers and an idea of what to come. But I think it's gonna be wild, and I think all the small guilds and all those who feel that they don't have a place, they will quickly realize that this is actually for them now. Now it's possible if they just really go for it. And I think that's probably the coolest thing about the new patch.
Well, thank you very much. I look forward to talking to you again. Bye, Frank.
Bye.
All right, thank you guys for listening in on that interview with Franksinatra. I really enjoyed that one. He was a delight to talk to, and I didn't have to do a whole lot of editing. I've been hyping up a interview that I was going to do for like a week. I said I was going to interview Gluttony, right? I said last week I was going to interview him. Well, he asked me, he said, Shozen, can I bring Archersnon into this interview? And I was like, can he behave? And he said, yeah. And he was wrong. So I have a lot of editing to do. It's going to take quite a bit of work. But soon I will have... And when I say soon, I'm talking Blizzard soon here, guys. I'm talking Blizzard soon here. I will have a gluttony interview for you. I also have Handel, which will it'll likely be tomorrow or the next day, because this gluttony one is taking forever. I wanted to have it out yesterday. Things are taking time. Though I will have, I think, another interview. I'm doing another one right after the show with some guys who are doing a interesting take on an alliance, and I believe Bacon will be involved in that. Bacon's been messaging me all day. If you guys know the Bacons, apparently it's another multi-gaming group, and they're pretty significant. So I'll be talking with them after the show. That should be fun. And you can catch this show and these interviews the rest of the week, Wednesday through Friday, right here on twitch.tv/Albion Online and 18 UTC. Tomorrow through Friday, though, I will be coming back to do some of these off-season crystals. We're going to cover the T2 and 3s. So tune in for those tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. On Monday, we will be coming back. On Saturday, we'll be coming back again for, the invasion, the start of the Season 8. These territories will be going live. This is going to be incredible. I'm really looking forward to seeing this new gameplay actually take effect going forward from Saturday. I know on Saturday it's just going to be an invasion. We've seen this before. But the towers being taken afterwards and how that interacts with the hideouts and when people starting to claim these terries. That's when things are going to get really interesting around here. That's why if you see Robin Hooders, as I like to call him, as you see him in chat right now, I brought him in to do some ZVZ chatter with us in the future for some of these. We're going to see how that goes. I'm looking forward to having him on, doing some ZVZ coverage with us. I'm also going to be hoping to, in the near future, for fans like Funstealer, do some NA coverage of crystals at least a couple of times a week. So that'll be something to look forward to in the future. With the upcoming season, the schedule for the daily show is going to change. We're very likely going to be dropping Monday from the show lineup. That is due to the fact that we're going to be working a lot of Saturdays, a lot of double Saturdays. We're going to be bringing you all the crystals as well. The crystal tournaments where we do the higher ranked matches. Lupac will be joining Bogul and I, and we will be doing those events for you. So in order to, not work 6 days and sometimes 7 days in a week, we're going to drop Mondays. So we will do that and add a flexible, hour or so where we will be covering the ZVZs when they occur. That's the plan anyway. So hopefully all this comes together at the end of the week. And starting next week, we'll have a new, better schedule for all of you. And I can start revealing more of that as the week goes on. So let me pull the final raffle. Get involved in that. Get involved. And we will see who we have the final raffle. Okay. I am Gad has won the big raffle. And Numberlock has won the big raffle. So thank you guys for playing along. I hope to see you guys later in the week. I'll be running some reruns for the rest of the day. So if you didn't see some of the interviews from earlier, you can go ahead and check them out on reruns. Or if you want to watch a specific one, because say you want to watch the Dell one from yesterday, go ahead. Check that out on the VODs. Shiro, pretty good one. I had Mojo and Sucks on earlier in the week. There's some good ones out there. All right, well, thank you guys very much for tuning in. I will see you guys next time. Peace.